Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Coach Moore will take questions about general manager things. Coach, want to make a quick statement? Let me mute everyone first. Oh, use your hand raise if you can for questions, like usual. Mute, mute, mute. All right, Coach, floor is yours.
Yeah, I guess the welcome everybody and thank you for being on the Zoom today. I really appreciate your time. What we wanted to do is talk about the recruiting and where we're going right now from this point as we try to fill out the back end of our roster. Coach Hurley is very excited about the 10 guys that we have in the fold right now. Really loves the makeup of the 10 guys, how everything has fallen to this point, both with the freshmen incoming, the transfers incoming, and the guys that we have returning. He likes how the pieces fit and how the roster's been put together. We're really trying to be strategic and creative with how we put together the rest of the roster. We are targeting probably 14 or 15 roster spots. And, we'll be looking basically for depth at every position with these last four or five spots on the roster. Obviously, a third string center is something we'll be targeting. We'll be looking for another wing, another combo guard, possibly a combo forward. But we're trying to be as strategic in this new age of potential revenue sharing with finding people who are maybe overlooked in the high school ranks, um, foreign players, and then maybe under recruited transfers that are still in the portal. So, um, with that said, can open it up to questions.
We'll go Dave, then Joe.
Yeah, Tom, how tricky is it to bring in those type of players you just mentioned to kind of fill out the roster when, like you said, you guys are really happy with kind of the 10 guys you got now? I know the backup kind of center guy will sort of be number 11, I would assume, but um, to bring in guys who it would seem both parties would kind of probably understand there wouldn't be a whole lot of playing time, at least first, right off the bat. How do you kind of sell that to some of these guys, or I mean, is that an accurate statement to say that you're probably looking for guys who are more or less not going to play too much this year?
You hate to really limit somebody like that, Dave, like right out of the chute. You hope that you see something in them where uh, that if things break correctly for that person, that they'd be able to find a role. Sometimes, unfortunately, things like that happen with an injury, and you don't ever want that, obviously. But um, we're looking at these guys as potential people to help us initially, to your point, in practice to make sure we have a high level practice on a day in and day out basis. But then also potentially helping us down the road as upside guys, as somebody who could maybe hit for us in year two or year three. That was one of the things that hurt us a little bit this year, is we were a little thin um, in terms of the depth past our top nine or so, and especially in that 5 week period where Liam was out of games and practices, it it didn't allow us to give a lot of practice reps off from our heavy minute guys. So Haas had a lot of minutes, and Taras had a lot of reps, and Alex in particular had a lot of reps during that time. And we're hopeful that if we can get this thing to 14 or 15 with really athletic and some bring some athleticism and some length and some energy into that, it could help alleviate some of the high minute guys too as well, and eliminate some of the wear and tear that they accrue during the course of the season.
When you say the 14, 15, I know the limit is most likely going to get up to 15 this year. You're talking about scholarship guys. Well, you're not talking about walk-ons. You're
Yeah,
talking about
yeah, it'll be, I think it'll either be 13 scholarships or, depending on what the house settlement settles on roster size, it could get up to 15. But yeah, and even in the walk-on spots, Dave, you're always trying to, that's a huge challenge, but you're always trying to find someone who athletically and competitively can like not only add to your practices, but also be well liked and respected in the locker room too, as well.
mix.
Hey Tom, is my mic working this time?
Yep, I can hear you, Joe.
When we talked to Dan right after the season ended, he seemed, he seemed really unsure about how many players he was going to be able to bring back and retain. Do you feel like you guys did as you were expecting with retaining players and how that went? And then also just going into the portal now, how, I guess we'll just go with that one first.
Yeah, I'd say, Joe, we're overly happy with who came back. I don't think we could have scripted it any better in terms of the returning guys that we would have wanted back. I mean, if you'd have said, you know, which what do we have? Five coming back, Solo, Stewie, Alex, Jay Ross, and Taris, like that would have been exactly how we would have wanted it to unfold. So we're thrilled with those guys coming back. Not only are they terrific players, but they're terrific kids, and they've tasted winning. All but Taris has a national championship here, so that culture stays tight, and that winning attitude stays tight. And so yeah, we're thrilled. We're thrilled that they saw enough in us, and they saw enough in what was going on here to and how special a place UConn is, that they wanted to come back.
And when you went into the portal, it seemed like you got kind of the main priorities out of the way pretty early. I guess I wonder about the NIL aspect of it with those guys. Was that really not much of a factor with them? And how difficult is it to navigate that with all the rules that could be changing or could not be changing or whatever's going on?
The NIL aspect to what guys, Joe? Which guys are returning guys?
Yeah, the returning guys and then just getting those two guards out of the portal.
Yeah. Well, NIL is a huge part of every decision right now. The incoming freshmen, the transfers, and the returning players. This was really the first off season where because of revenue sharing, everybody will be contracted next year. If the rev sharing settlement goes through like everyone expects it to, it'll be contracted by the athletic department. So this was a fascinating recruiting spring, I'd say, because of that. And the discussion, just having the NIL be not at the forefront of every discussion, but a part of every discussion with kids. It adds another layer, obviously, to our decision, on how we want the roster to look, but also every recruit's decision too. Every recruit and his family have to make a value judgment on how much is NIL opportunity going to impact how which way I want to go. So it's certainly tricky, and it's like I said, it's just another element that you have to navigate. And Joe, you have to navigate it well too, right? You have to do your research. You have to have a lot of communication. You have as a staff, and then you have to also have a lot of communication with your athletic department now. And I can't say enough of how supportive Dave Benedict and Jason Biedekofer have been when it comes to that. We're discussing recruits with them on a daily, if not hourly basis at times, and they've been tremendously supportive as well.
We're gonna go Mike, then Mark. Rolling.
Hey, Tom.
Mike, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. What's that hat you got on? Who you?
Pinehurst.
Oh, okay.
Pinehurst. I went and sprayed the ball all over that place last year.
I was gonna say I didn't expect you to take that track down. So
No, I'm not ready for that. Not ready to do that.
that's fine.
I just wanted to pick your brain on like the wild nature of working in college athletics, and you have this unique position with an elite program. could you go into a little bit more about just the scope of your job year round? Obviously, a lot of today's discussion is very specific to roster building, but the rev share angle, you're kind of at the intersection of basketball and business, it seems, in a lot of ways. Just wondering how, in this role, you hope to distinguish yourself, and if you could just explain all that's packed into it, or at least some of it, Tom.
Yeah, good question. Multi-layered question. I've been spending probably half of my time in an assistant coaching role and probably half my time in a quasi GM position over the last 3 years. Dan and I really saw, we like to say, I think we saw the need to it. It sort of smacked us all in the face in the spring of 2022 when Tyrese Martin and RJ Cole had another year left of eligibility, but our NIL wasn't really a thing in the 21-22 season. So they really didn't make any money off NIL, any sizable amount of money. And they both turned down opportunities to come back because they had to just start earning money as basketball players, because they only have a finite amount of years, all of these kids, in order to, earn money. So it was then when I think Dan and me and Kamani and Luke at the time were just like, we have to start doing something with this. So my job in the last couple of years has really been about donor outreach and donor education, to try to get our collective to help in any way that I could get the collective up and running and operational and flourishing. And it's been mostly a fundraising job for me in the GM aspects of it. There are a lot of different ways people are using the position, and some of you guys on the call have probably seen some colleges are going with an NBA general manager or assistant general manager. I know Cincinnati has done that. LSU's done that recently. North Carolina hired an agent. As you know, St. Bonaventure hired Woj. There's other places. NC State recently hired a recruiting guy from the NBA who's a scout in the NBA, but used to be a sort of a high school grassroots recruiting expert. You can use the position in a lot of different ways, and I think Dan is so smart and so calculated and so ahead of the curve that he's got a lot of things on his mind with how he thinks this thing can look. As we go forward, he and I have talked quite a bit about how it will be best served here at UConn and what the role will look like. And we're trying to make sure we figure out that is this something that fits me the best too? And am I the best person for it? To be honest with you. So right now, the thing here entails a lot of fundraising, donor outreach, a lot of scheduling, game scheduling, both the high major games and the bye games. Some roster sort of construction. A lot of talk between the athletic, a sort of a go-between our staff and the athletic department. It's sort of a catch-all, and I think Dan and I are thinking about the position as we sort of go through it and what we think is essential and what we think isn't. One of the fascinating parts of it is trying to figure out, is the like in some places what they're doing with this thing is the general managers are starting to run it or trying to run it like a pro sports organization, where their office is also responsible for bringing in the talent. And basically the coaching staff is tasked with coaching the talent that's brought in. Now, that is not the way it's going to look here. Obviously, with Dan Hurley, who's, I think, one of the best evaluators of talent and one of the best roster construction head coaches I've ever seen. And then with two recruiting assistants like Kamani Young and Luke Murray, I mean, that thing is on lock. So we don't have to really worry about that. So, we're looking at it from a different angle and a different lens right now, where we sort of see the position as it's more of like I said, a donor education, a donor outreach, um, game scheduling, dealings with the Big East Conference on day-to-day issues there. And then some oversight in our own basketball support staff, working with our strength coach and trainer and medical team and academics and sports information. And although Bobby's tough, I mean, I can't really control Bobby. He's tough for me to handle. He's tough because of the Mets. He brings up the Mets all the time now that they're on a roll. So it's hard to get him back on track.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's the ninth. Did you say my name?
But anyway, so yeah, that's the thing, Mike. It's sort of evolving, and it's something that again Dan and I are sort of discussing. Feels like on a weekly basis on how we want the thing to look.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for sharing all that.
No problem.
Hey, Tom, Mark Zanetto, Big East Energy. Considering UConn's multifaceted recruiting strategy, are you guys exploring the possibility of targeting players currently in the NBA draft process who may withdraw and return to college? And how does that potential avenue fit into what you discussed today for finalizing the roster?
Good question, Mark. No, I don't see that anymore. We've those young men that are still in the draft process and may come back to college will probably command an extremely high NIL value. And we're not in that market anymore for the rest of this, 25, 26 roster. So these guys, I think our fans need to understand these next 4 or 5 people that we bring in, and I've been thinking a lot about this weekend in advance of this call. They're going to look drastically different than maybe any other recruits that have come through UConn in the terms of who they're being recruited by and what their profile is. You can make a case that pretty much every kid who's come in on scholarship in the last 30, 40 years has been probably recruited by a lot of high major schools, and it's been an intense recruiting battle for us to try to win. Even for the guys who ended up falling into 11, 12, or 13th man role and only lasting a year or two and then transferring. On the way in, it was a fight. Now, what we're seeing is a lot of the high major schools who pretty much have their roster set in terms of the finances after 8, 9, or 10 guys have to really get creative with how they want the bottom of the roster to look. So the profile coming in of these next 3 or 4 guys may be really different than the profile of guys we've had over the years. So I don't expect, for us to bring in somebody who's put his name in the draft process right now, that would be a huge splash. And that's not where we're looking right now.
Thanks. Thank you, Tom.
No problem, Mark.
We'll go a few more quick ones. See Anthony, Jaden, Eric. Wrap it up.
Hey, Coach. Hey, Tom. Question for you. You're talking a lot about roster construction, but in terms of roster management, what happened with Darius Adams, are we going to see more players? Are we going to see fewer freshmen that actually get a lot of playing time unless they're one and dones?
That's a great question too, Anthony. Boy, I mean, when I speak on this, I'm speaking for UConn, so I don't really want to speak for high major or I'm speaking for college basketball coaches in general. But the way we see it, it does feel like we may get away from bringing in huge freshman classes. I think the Dan and Luke and Kalani feel like they're going to be targeting probably a few more elite high school prospects that have the potential to be one and dones, and maybe less guys that will, fill out a class. So we can sort of reevaluate at the end of a year and maybe take one extra transfer. So to your point, yeah, I mean, I think you may see us go all in on a one and done or a few one and dones, guys that we see immediate impact guys. Because let's face it, anyone who's an immediate impact guy at at a UConn as a freshman is probably going to be considered a one and done type of player, like Steph and like Liam and what Donovan could have done, a couple years ago. So, yeah, I see us taking swings at a few more of those guys and trying to land one, and maybe not extending the class as deep year in and year out as we have in the last couple classes. So, just because it seems like the portal and having roster flexibility in the spring is more important than being overloaded with numbers in an incoming freshman class.
And just a quick follow-up, how do you manage expectations of these players? Because all of them are very talented players. How do you manage those expectations? I know that goes over to Coach Hurley's job, but how do you manage them? Because you're helping bring them in the front door, so to speak.
Yeah, coach does a great job of being honest. I've never been around to, anyone who's as gets to the heart of a matter with a recruit as well as he does, and as tactfully as he does, and as honestly as he does. He has very specific ideas in mind as to how he wants the roster to look and how he wants to use each of these roster spots. So when he's sitting in front of a kid and his parents, he's telling them exactly how he sees the young man fitting. What can be tricky is you're trying to secure a commitment from a high school kid in June, July, August, September of their senior year, and you have to project what the roster is going to look like in the spring after a season. And that can be tricky because when we're sitting there talking to them in August to September and we're trying to secure the commitment, we have an idea in mind as to how all of our returning players are going to play. And it's always generally positive that it's going to be an upward trajectory for all of them. This year, what happened in a couple spots is guys didn't progress like we thought and maybe weren't what we thought, and they ended up transferring. And now we have two open spots that we have to, or three open spots that we have to now go get in the portal that we didn't anticipate having to get when we were talking to these kids last July and August. So it does become tricky. You need people who are in it for, like I said, not LIL, not NIL centric, not just bottom line highest dollar amount centric, and people who are understanding that the roster may look one way in July and August, and then it's going to look different depending on how kids do during the year in March and April.
Thank you.
No problem, Tony.
Tom, how are you, my friend?
Good. What's up, Jaden?
Nothing much, nothing much. Question for you now, going into this role full time after coming off the road and being an assistant and doing double duty for the last couple of years. How's the transition process been for you the past couple weeks, month or so since the season ended and Mike Nardi came on board? And also to follow up, how much of a role have you played with integrating Mike into this?
It's been interesting. Still trying to figure it out, and I'm still trying to get comfortable with it. Um, I'm trying to find the challenges and then get excited about the challenges, and it's much more right now, Jaden. I'm heavily invested in working out the bye games on the non-conference schedule and finalizing some of the other games in the non-conference schedule. We're finishing up all the NIL commitments to the guys on the 24-25 roster and working through with agents and contract guys in the 25-26 roster. Trying again to get better at everything, trying to grow, trying to expand, and it's not as much time with Dan, Kamani, Luke, and Mike around the conference table as it is, being in my office and doing other work, more as an individual. So I'm getting used to that. I see them in the morning, I see them throughout the day, I see them at night. We talk constantly. I'm through there all the time, but it's a different perspective for sure. I haven't had a chance yet with Mike. He's been here like a week. I haven't had a chance yet with Mike to like really sit down and go over a lot of stuff, but I plan to and will very soon. But I'm excited about his addition to the staff. I think he's been someone who everyone in our organization has always held in really, really high esteem since he was running around for Kevin Boyle at St. Patrick's as a player and throughout his college playing career. And then every interaction we've had with him as on the road and when we've played Villanova as an assistant coach has been nothing but first class and professional. So we think he's going to bring a lot to the table.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure.
Same, Jaden.
Hey, Tom, Eric Dobratz. How are you, bud?
What's up, Eric?
Hey, quick question for you. How hard was it to give up the whistle? We all know you for being on the sidelines, on the bench. You've been a coach your whole life. I mean, I'm sure your family was involved. Like, just take me through the process, if you could, of walking away from being a coach, something you've known your whole life.
Yeah, it's interesting, Eric. It's sort of the last couple of years as I've been doing both, Dan and I have talked a lot about like, should I just commit totally to one? And the one I was leaning to that seemed to sort of command or demand more of my attention was the GM duties. So it hasn't been a drastic cutoff, emotionally for me, where it's just like all of a sudden it's over. It's been something that I've been gradually weaned off in the last couple of years. So I think with Dan being such a strong head coach, in all aspects of the head coach seat and what a great job he does on a day in and day out basis. And then having Kamani and Luke also there. I mean, you have is the best 3-person combination you could have in those 3 spots in the country. So it allowed me to feel pretty good about committing more of my time and energies towards the GM thing. So I was, as you said, I was at every practice. I was on the bench every game. I was still, I felt okay with putting my focus and my energies on the GM duties. So it's been okay. Yeah, it's been all right. It's been something that I think is bad in a way, but it's also exciting at the same time. And I'm blessed to be to be back here at UConn, and have it come full circle because the place means so much to me. So thank you.
I think Mike had one last one, and then we'll let Tom go back to time the Rangers play. They already in action, coach.
We scored more than 1 run today, Bobby. So and DeGrom was on the hill too. So
That's more run support than he's used to.
yes.
One Rangers over the Mariners right now.
Okay. Yeah, it was 6-1 when I jumped on here. So we haven't scored 6 runs in about 3 weeks total. So we'll take it.
Actually, Tom, the question I had remaining was just pretty much asked by Eric. So I don't need to bug you too much. I am curious, where will you be during games now?
I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Dan and I have there's a couple more things we probably will discuss over the course of the summer because we're both sort of exchanging ideas and to see what he wants it to look like, exactly what he wants it to look like. There's a lot of ways that, there's a lot of ways we can go with the thing. So yeah. There's still some questions out there that remain to be like sort of worked through, but we'll get there.
Cool. Thanks for your time today.
My pleasure, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you, coach. Thanks, everyone.
Good luck, Tom.
See you after next one.
Thanks, Tom. Good
Sounds
luck.
good.
Thanks,
Take care,
Coach.
everyone.
Thank you.